Maybe you've been sitting on the sidelines, or maybe the fever pitch of the crazy bidding wars that were taking place last spring had you put your home search on a hold. Well, if you haven't heard, the market has cooled, and with less competition comes more opportunity. Today I want to go over a couple of options that you might have as a buyer in today's market that could help you close the deal. Hello, Central Maine. It is your realtor, Nick Isgro with eXp Realty. And as I just said at the beginning, today I just want to do a quick video, go over a couple of points, a couple of opportunities that I'm seeing for buyers who are getting into the market now or maybe returning to the market now. Now, before I get into that, I want to welcome you here to the channel. If you've never been here before, we cover all things real estate here in the state of Maine, particularly in the Central Maine market. If that's of interest to you or adds value to your process in the buying and selling of homes, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and smash that little alarm bell. You'll be notified every time I put out new content. All right, so I said I wanted to cover just a couple quick points. The first thing that I'm seeing that is a huge opportunity coming back for buyers, and frankly, an important opportunity coming back for buyers in the market now that we're normalizing a bit, and that is the return of contingencies. Now, what do I mean with contingencies? I mean financing contingencies, inspections, super important. A lot of these things that we saw over the past year where crazy bidding wars and buyers were just starting to skip these things because they were trying to, go into a multiple bid scenario, multiple offer scenario, and make theirs look the most competitive. That's just not the case anymore. And frankly, I think this is a good thing for the market. And here's why. When you're skipping inspections on a home, and maybe you're spending $300,000 or $400,000 on the home, maybe more, maybe less, that's still one of your biggest investments out there. Well, as a real estate agent who does represent both buyers and sellers, but in this case, we're going to speak towards the buyer's needs. If I'm representing a buyer, I certainly don't want them to get into a home and then find out when they get in there that things just were not as they seemed. I always stress the importance of inspections. Yes, there's those rare scenarios where it might make sense, but simply just to do it for the sake of getting into a home, not the best advice that I would ever give. So that is something that's coming back. Same with financing. It was, if you didn't have the biggest down payment, if you didn't have the cash coming in for an offer, without those multiple offer scenarios, FHA loans are coming back. There's a lot of different options that had just gone away with regards to contingencies last spring that are now making their way back. So it's a great opportunity for buyers who want to get into the market, but they want to make sure that they're doing it slowly, they're doing it smartly, and making sure that they're putting their best foot forward. All right, the second opportunity I really wanted to mention to buyers out there is that sellers are once again coming back to the table and often now willing to negotiate in some of those closing costs, which can often be one of the biggest costs for the buyer. As you know, earlier this year, when we were in those multiple offer scenarios, the idea that you were going to ask the seller to, put several $1,000s towards your closing costs was really unheard of. It just made it a far less competitive offer. It was very difficult, except for some, rare scenarios where you might have been the only offer, to get that through. If not, what people were doing was offering way over asking price and trying to factor in, well, I can offer, instead of $10,000 over asking price, maybe I can offer 15 and asking for 5 back. Even then, at the time, sellers knew what kind of market they were in. It wasn't a scenario they really liked. Good news, this is something that is coming back. In fact, a Realtor.com survey just showed that about 32% of recent sellers have had some negotiating on the closing costs. And again, this isn't going to make a huge dent in the sellers. We should be clear, sellers here in Central Maine anyway are still getting about 98% of what they're asking for on the list price of what they're listing their homes for, assuming the home is priced correctly. But if you are a buyer and one of the things that's just going to stand in your way is that extra couple of $1,000s in closing costs, this is a good time to get in and realize that sellers are, by and large, once again, back to the negotiating table and trying to make these deals come together. So those are really the big 2 tips today, guys, especially if you're a buyer out there, the return of contingencies, inspections, and financing, and sellers, once again, being willing to negotiate a little bit, at least, on the closing costs to maybe help finance some of those at the closing. Bottom line here is after the last couple of years, it's been incredibly competitive in the housing market. Buyers and sellers are finally returning to the negotiating table, and I think that's good for the market. I think it's good for all involved. It leads for an overall less frustrating situation, frankly, for both parties. As I represent both, I can attest to that. And in this case, helping a lot of those buyers that were just sitting on the sidelines and not able to compete get in and finally get their foot in the door to home ownership. That's it for today's video, guys. If you are in the market now, if you've been through some recent negotiations, if you've gone through some of these and maybe I missed something that you think is glaring, go ahead and drop a comment below. Would love to hear what your personal experience is here, or maybe even what your predictions are on where this is all going. Of course, if you are in the market and you're looking for a real estate professional, all of my contact information is linked in the post below. As always, guys, I thank each and every one of you for sticking around to the end of this video, and until the next one, we'll see you next time.